Hey guys, I just got out of the hospital following my incident at South by Southwest 2018. I'm going to be fine in the long run, at least physically, and I just wanted to let you all know what exactly occurred at South by Southwest to land me in an emergency room. Now, if you don't know, Takashi Iizuka is, at the time of this video, the current head of Sonic Team. His first big designing role was for Sonic the Hedgehog 3 and Knuckles, widely considered to be one of the best games ever made. He was also the lead designer of Nights into Dreams, one of my all-time favorite games, or at least it was until last week. He's since worked his way up as a designer into becoming the main supervisor of the Sonic the Hedgehog franchise. Considering all this, it makes sense that he would obviously be at the South by Southwest Sonic the Hedgehog panel. Mr. Iizuka was joined on stage by the Sonic Twitter guy, Aaron Weber, along with Austin Keys, the marketing director, as well as Mr. Hess and Miss Hernandez, who both work on Sonic animations. I was lucky enough to attend this panel, and I had a comfy seat in the third row. The panel itself was pretty neat, what with the announcement of Sonic Plus, Sonic Mania Plus, and Sonic Mania Adventures, as well as a new racing game being teased. It was all well and good at first. Now, I'm a thirsty guy, and I drink a lot of liquids. I had a bottle of water with me. At one point during the panel, I'd gone to take a swig out of the bottle, and after twisting the cap back on, I managed to drop it. I bent down to grab it, and on my way back up, I noticed something strange. You can't see it in the official stream, but in real life, I noticed that Mr. Iizuka's left ankle had some type of metal anklet thing clapped around it. I didn't know what the hell it could be, and I had to do a double take to make sure I was seeing what I thought I was seeing. I remember brushing it off as maybe some bizarre fashion accessory that was popular in Japan or something, but I didn't know. Shortly after this, the Q&A panel started. I wanted to ask Takashi Iizuka what his favorite 3D Sonic game was, but they turned down my question. They just didn't want me to ask it for some reason. So I just thought, whatever, and returned to my seat. You can watch the Q&A on YouTube. Of course you get the meme guys asking their meme questions. But there was one child, who asked a particularly pressing question. That question being, where's the remaster of Sonic 3 and Knuckles? This is where things started to get strange. You won't hear it in the video, but right after this kid asked his question, you could hear a very low rumbling noise that gradually got louder. It was still very quiet, and you had to really listen for it to hear it. I remember feeling a faint earthquake-like sensation at my feet, but that could have just been my mind playing tricks on me if I'm being completely honest. Aaron brushed off the question with some kind of generic PR response, and after the kid walked away, the rumbling subsided. Now, you probably won't find any info on this, but there was a secret little VIP meetup right after the panel, with Austin Keys, Aaron, and Iizuka. Miss Hernandez and Mr. Hess were absent from this meetup. Somehow, some way, a door had been left open, and I'd managed to sneak into the room that this meetup was being held in. The trick is to act like you just belong in there. Sometimes you'll get lucky, and you won't get caught. I was hanging out in the back when I finally got a clear view of Mr. Iizuka, and I noticed that his anklet thing that I saw earlier was actually a shackle, and he'd been chained to the floor with like a 4, maybe 5 foot chain. This guy was literally anchored to the floor. My eyes bugged out when I noticed this, and before I had a chance to process what I was seeing, Aaron Weber noticed me and asked why I was being so quiet. I mumbled something about being a huge fan when he motioned for me to come closer. I did, but I recall feeling this sudden, intense sense of dread. I shuffled my way towards the group who were talking about something. At this point, everything sounded like it was underwater, and I don't know why. I finally snapped out of it when Aaron said they were wrapping up, and asked if anyone had any more questions. Mr. Keyes noticed me and asked if I had any questions, and made another kind of playful jab about me being so quiet. I stammered that, yeah, I just wanted to know, or wanted to ask Mr. Iizuka what his favorite 3D Sonic game was. At this point, Mr. Iizuka's friendly demeanor immediately dropped. He spoke in a low, gravely voice in Japanese for a solid 10 seconds, with everyone else staying totally silent, until Mr. Keyes interrupted Iizuka and interrupted him with Sonic Heroes. His favorite 3D Sonic game is Sonic Heroes, in a noticeably shaky tone. Mr. Iizuka glared at Mr. Keyes, he took a few steps away from the group and stood there in silence, matching the rest of us. In a brief, regrettable moment, my feeling of dread was replaced with a feeling of intrigue. Before I could think about asking what I was about to ask, my mouth acted on its own. I asked him, "Is that why you're so opposed to the idea of Sonic Adventure 3? Mr. Keyes and Mr. Weber's faces instantly switched to this horrified expression, with Mr. Keyes backing up against the wall and Mr. Weber darting out of the room. The next few moments were a total blur. Iizuka turned around and clutched me by the throat, lifting me up into the air with one hand. He twirled me around like a javelin and hurled me into a wall. I actually dented the concrete structure and crushed a table on the way down, absolutely just mangling my side. I laid on the ground and I was bleeding pretty good at this point. I noticed these two huge dudes in medical garb. They rushed into the room and they each apprehended Iizuka by his arms, and he started frothing at the mouth. The man on the right pulled out a large syringe. Iizuka noticed this and instantly headbutted the dude, who dropped to the floor instantly. With one hand free, he hauled off and punched the other man square in the face. I could hear bones breaking. The other man joined his colleague on the floor. Totally two huge dudes just knocked out by a game developer like half their size. Iizuka looked back at me with a twisted grin. He kind of kicked his shackled foot several times. I guess he was trying to taunt me or something. The sound of those chains rattling is gonna stick with me for a long time. With one final kick, he shattered the restraints, and he was on the loose. My vision fading, I came to terms with what I thought was my imminent death, only to see him walking away from me as I slipped into unconsciousness. I woke up in the hospital. My side was completely stitched up, but it was still way more mangled looking than I would have expected. My head was killing me. A nurse walked in, surprised to see me awake so soon. She told me that I'd been the victim of a hit and run, but I knew this wasn't the case. I don't know how much they were paying her or paying the hospital, but I could tell she knew otherwise. I checked my phone and went on the official Sonic Twitter, of course lacking any sort of mention of the previous day's events. I wasn't surprised at all. I was surprised when I got a text from an unknown number with a photo attachment. I reluctantly opened the photo to see a pile of ashes. with a particularly familiar tree line in the background. My house, or at least what used to be my house. I was horrified and instantly called the number, only to be answered with nasally laughter. I wanted answers. I wanted to know what the hell was going on, and they just hung up. I instantly hit redial and was right away met with an answering machine. I threw the phone across the room and cried to myself for probably 3 hours. Physically unable to produce any tears, I lay in silence in my hospital bed, just in shell shock, and I heard my phone a second time. A new photo. During my time away, I'd sent my pet goat, Mary, to a local farm for caretaking. I knew the farmer. He was always good to Mary, and I trusted him. He was a great guy. I don't know how it was done, but I opened the picture. I instantly just retched. It was a picture of my pet, Mary the goat, dead on a concrete floor, with her stomach sliced open. Below her, there was a message. It said, "This is what happens when you go too far." It was scrawled on the floor in her blood. I reacted loud enough for the nurse to hear me, and I told her about the picture through my blubbery cries and screaming. She injected something into my IV bag, and I was out. Next thing I know, I wake up too wasted to speak when they tell me I'm free to go. Free to go where? I have no house. I have no one waiting for me. This was 2 days ago. And I've been staying at a cheap motel since then. The worst part is I know he'll get away with it. I don't know what I'm going to do. Last night I heard light knocking on the door and some muffled taunting in broken English. I don't know how much longer I have left. But next time you go to buy a Sonic the Hedgehog game, please remember my story. Thanks, guys.